Hello, everyone. Before we start this episode of the Depression Vacation podcast, I just want to share with you that there is a trigger warning for this episode as we do discuss sexual violence. So we hope that you are okay, and you're always welcome to give us a shout if you need someone to talk to. And we love you very much, and thank you for listening.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 30 of Depression Vacation Podcast.
Is it really?
We are back at even numbers, another 10 to add.
Wow.
I mean, I can't tell. I don't remember if that's 30 including our aborted episode, or
Still
if
for an episode.
yeah, because I think it is 30 with the aborted episode because
The one you will never hear.
I still included in, you know. It's like a Catholic family. We included
It's the rainbow episode.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Sorry, that sounds
We're the
insensitive.
worst.
Yeah, but
That's
anyway,
okay.
we
You're
have
right.
a special. First off, I'm Hal,
I'm Shannon.
and we have a special guest with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself, guest of specialties?
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm your special guest, Allie.
Allie.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah.
You're welcome for having you today.
Allie is, because she's not good at introducing herself, a improviser extraordinaire, and as of last year, a pretty good filmmaker too. Like,
Oh, Ta. I only learned from the best, of course. Hal Kramer taught me everything I
the
know.
only reason I brought that up is I knew I was going to get accolades. Like, please tell me more about how awesome I am.
What's funny is people are like, I heard you made a movie about toilet paper. And I'm like, there's different layers to it, you guys. You have
Well,
to
yeah,
unravel the role.
yeah.
But no, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about your toilet paper movie? It was an award-winning movie. And
I
actually,
think, well, to be fair, I think I won by default because I don't know if there was anyone else in the category.
I think there were 3, maybe 4 new filmmakers actually in that category. 'Cause
It was a lot of fun. I think it was called Unwritten Rules was the theme
Yeah, Unwritten
for
Rules
it.
was the theme.
And I went very literal with the unwritten rules of toilet paper etiquette. Does the roll come over or under? But I wanted to expand it out a bit. But it was fun to shoot. I just tried to do a lot of short, tight cuts and make it look stylistic.
It was very arty.
It was a lot of fun to watch. There were a
yeah.
lot of great films actually at that Vid Jam. So
Yeah.
as there always are with every Vid Jam.
Yeah, my friend Rachel was one of the judges for that particular one, and like usually we have a week of friends socializing that includes just running because we just run. It's like the only time I get exercise every week now. And when we were running that week, she was like, yeah, there were a couple that I really, really loved. And she's like, oh, who was Allie Jacobs? And I'm like, oh, she's a friend of mine. She's like, oh, big, big fan
Oh,
of
that's
that
adorable.
movie.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
It's always
Big, big
weird
fan.
when you hear that people are big fans of you. I hear it sometimes.
yeah.
and
I'm like, are we talking about me? Are you sure you have the
yeah.
right information?
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon, we were in a vid jam together
Yes.
with Hal. I don't know if were you? I was in a
Oh,
mask, so it was
yeah,
hard
I
to see
forgot
my
about-
face. And
Yeah.
I just
wore that
mentioned. I
mask
just
wrong
reminded
the whole
Shannon
time we
about
were
this the
filming.
other day, and I totally forgot until you just mentioned that.
Was that
Yeah.
Barnaby's Dark World?
Barnaby and the Dark World.
Barnaby and the Dark World.
that was Ninja's movie I made with him
Yes.
about, what was it, like 6 months before Ninja died.
Rest
So
in
R.I.P.
Ninja.
Ninja.
yeah, but he had so much fun on that movie.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I thought he was gonna, because he was already at that point, like he had cancer, and that was kind of what eventually like caused his kidney failure and took
Yeah.
him. But like he was starting to get a little bit more tired on our walks at that point, and I was like, oh man, did I just write a movie for my dog? And am I going to be torturing him by having him like stand out and shooting a movie for like 4 to 5 hours at a time? But he was super energized. Like everybody made a fuss of him, gave him treats. And for days afterwards, my mom said he would just, whenever he would go outside, he would instinctively walk to that section of their yard because he's like, wait, where did all my friends go?
Aw.
He wanted to do more.
Yeah.
He got bit by the acting bug.
He was actually in a lot of my vid jams. He was the very first vid jam I ever did. I did with Sarah and Brad Austin and Chris Packard. It was a mess of a movie.
I'm big fans of all of those people.
Oh my god, it was. I mean, I love all of us, but like, I did not know the process of putting together a 48-hour movie, and it was an absolute. Like, there were some fun parts of it, but part of the plot was that Chris Packard was a lawyer who bequeathed Brad Austin a dog in a will, and so Brad
Naturally.
Brad begrudgingly just walked Ninja around for a lot of the movie. It didn't have a lot of plot to it. And then he played a role in another vid jam I did where he was some guy's dog just walking him. So he was in a lot of movies.
I remember there was a vid jam. It might have been Sammy's, and I think Ashley was in it also. But there was like a Chris Packard had a reoccurring bit where he was like, stay for, like, it was like, come in for one more, stay for a beer. But he was like that weird
Oh,
reoccurring.
that was Unhinged.
That
Yeah.
was hilarious. That was so funny.
Yeah, that was a very heavy movie. Yeah, that was the one where it was Liz was actually the star of that movie.
Yes, she was in that. It was like a false reality and trying to get back somewhere. So
Yeah, it was very, and like, actually, that movie has one of my absolute favorite vid-jam shots of all time, which is where Ashley is like walking silhouette style to the window of what was her office at the time, and then later became my ex-girlfriend's office as well, because they were partners.
maybe that's the next vid jam is like haunted properties, you know, or but like tainted.
So there is
tainted offices of Harrisburg.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to shoot something here because I don't think it's going to be around for that much longer, but there was a Verizon Service Center building on 29th Street, like on my way to work, which is like right over the 29th Street. It's like 29th and Dairy, essentially, in Harrisburg. And they're tearing it down right now. And it's just like a foundation and a lot of rubble. And I was like, oh man, somebody should shoot a movie here quick before it's gone. But it might not be there in time for the next vid jam.
I had a similar thing happen, but it's entirely different. Anyway, one time I went over to my future in-laws' house, and there was a dead bird floating in their pool, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should take a video of that and use it in a vid jam or something, because I was like, that's like really artsy, and I thought about doing it, and I mentioned it to Ryan, and I was like, that is disturbing. Why would you do that?
Oh my, so
I was like, how many times do you find a dead bird that you can shoot?
Full disclosure, I wouldn't do this with a bird, but going back to Barnaby a little bit, we did have that one scene where like he put his hand down and a bee stung him.
Yeah.
I just had a bee died in my apartment window back then, and I actually like just put it in a little vial and kept it in my fridge because for exactly that reason. I'm like, this could be a prop in a movie someplace. Like you never like finding a bee is very hard. And I have this giant dead bumblebee here that if I just preserve it in the back, I can use it as a prop later.
That's okay. I feel better about my life choices now.
I don't have any dead animals yet, but that it's not too late to start, right?
No,
you guys,
no.
like I could certainly
Follow your dreams.
capitalize on the way home. I mean,
world.
when it comes to hoarding, I'm definitely the queen. Like it's, I might
gosh.
really need this one piece of coral from you know Ocean City, New Jersey, when I was 5 years old that I can't get rid of.
Oh my god, I always think of Teddy from Bob's Burgers when I think of hoarders because like, have you seen the episode where they go through his house and he's a huge hoarder?
I have not. I'm not into Bob's Burgers. I have to
love
watch it.
Bob's
It's just
Burgers.
not
Oh
on
my
my
God.
radar. I'm sorry.
It's on Hulu.
A lot of things are on Hulu.
Everything is on.
Everything's on Hulu.
The thing with Teddy, though, that
I've
always
seen
kills
clips.
me, and I always think about this with hoarders, is he has a giant piece of concrete with just rebar sticking out of it, and he's like, oh, you look at this. This is a perfectly good piece of rebar I might need later. And I always think about that with hoarders. I'm like, I might need this rebar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I would never fault you guys for having a preserved bee as a prop for later or, you know, a video still or pictures of a bird in a pool. You don't know when that stuff is going to be useful to you. I get ideas for like weird, I don't know if vignette's the right word, but like a series of clips that kind of highlight like what a character is doing or like, you know, every time you walk into an office, they have like a different project on their desk, but it's something that's so juxtaposed from like, like they're doing taxidermy one day.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
You know, you walk in the next day and there's just like a Korean barbecue grill, but they're like also on the phone, like doing all their office tasks. You know, it's just that's what they do in their downtime. So I'll have to maybe I'll work on that for a future vid jam. But I would need a lot of props. So
Yeah, that's true.
just start looking.
Keep your props.
Not even just
be
look.
a hoarder. No,
Not
don't
even
be
just
a
look,
hoarder.
but like lots of VidJam has sort of evolved into a community where just like lots of people ask for help, and then lots of people like get and give help. So it's almost like a community of people. Like if you're looking for something, somebody will more or less lend it to you as long as they're not using it for that exact moment. Like I usually lend out lights to lots of people. I gave Wallace my fog machine for his shoot this last time around. And I feel like there might have been something else.
You might have the most equipment out of a lot of people. You're very generous.
Absolutely.
You're very
It's
nice
literally
and selfless
just sitting
to lend that
around,
out.
man.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, if you want to shoot something, if it doesn't like interfere with my stuff, please feel free to take stuff. And not a lot of people take me up on that. Lily Compton does pretty often. And I think Lily and Wallace.
I only don't ask because I don't know how to use it and I don't want to break it.
I can teach you. I don't know why I said that like a Dalek from Doctor Who.
I can teach you.
I will teach you the
Beep-boop.
tricks.
No. The key is you have to make everything into a question if you're a Dalek. Like, I can teach you.
I never noticed that before. You know, I was thinking a lot about Matt Smith recently. You know, he was 26 when he started Doctor Who.
Yeah, he was. Matt Smith is a unconventionally handsome man.
I was just talking about that because I recently so one of the movies I watched since Ryan's out of town is Last Night in Soho.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't
Oh.
seen that yet. It's on my
I've been
list.
meaning to watch it. It's on HBO Max. Check it out.
Yeah, we watched that over
Yeah.
Thanksgiving last year. That is a stylist. It's nice to see Edgar Wright getting back to doing.
It's like art house for sure.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of Baby Driver, and I have lots of
I
friends who
love
say
Baby
that.
Driver.
Yeah.
I've never seen Baby Driver, but I'm a huge fan of the Cornetto trilogies.
Yeah, me too. And Scott
It's just
Pilgrim.
one, you know. Oh, Scott Pilgrim is brilliant. I still love
I
Scott
haven't
Pilgrim.
seen it.
Oh, it might have been a moment that sort of passed because it's very hipstery from 12 years ago, but it's still a fantastic movie and just it's a feast for the eyes.
I know it from memes mostly.
Yeah, it's dated, but I love the music in it is great.
Written by Beck too.
The cinematography is really good, and
I'd probably appreciate it for what it. I mean, because usually the nicheness of a movie doesn't bother me all that much.
Yeah, if you like Edgar Wright stuff, if you liked Last Night in Soho, you'll like Scott Pilgrim because it's a lot more lighthearted.
Now, the only thing with Last Night in Soho, and I always am a little bit disappointed when this happens, is I guessed the twist, and I was upset about that.
It took us I watched it with my sisters, and we like to reason out the twist whenever we're watching things, and it took us a while to get what the twist of that movie was because obviously Matt Smith's character. And then Terrence Stamp's...
Don't spoil
Don't spoil
it,
it.
because I do want to watch it.
Yeah.
I will say I have a recommendation for a movie that had a twist that I was not anticipating. I kept trying to figure out what it was.
Please.
But it came out the same time as Last Night in Soho. It's The Night House with Rebecca Hall.
I did watch that one.
And it was, and I was like, what the is happening? Like, I
Yeah.
could not
You can
place
say fuck.
it.
This is an explicit
well, this
podcast.
was
Oh, yeah, we
a-
usually say fuck at the very beginning, so Hal remembers to label
Well,
this
I mean, my
explicit.
favorite way to watch horror movies is usually by myself, commenting the entire time, and just like, girl, what the fuck is going on? And your husband was up to some shit, and then you get the twist, and it is just that was not what I was expecting. But then I think they did a really good job of layering clues and things for you to find so that when you did look back, you were like, I'm dumb. I should have guessed this. But there was no way to anticipate it.
One of my favorite twists, and I talk about this all the time, was in Hereditary. It was one of my favorites.
Yes, that
Also,
he plays that card a lot, though, right? Like the
Ari Aster.
But that was the first of his films that I'd seen.
True.
And it had now when I go back and watch it, of course, I'm not as shocked as I was. But when I had never, I don't know if he had any movies before Hereditary, but
I think Hereditary was his first.
I think it's his first, but I saw Midsommar
I love
first.
Midsommar.
Me too, yeah.
And then I saw Hereditary, and I was like, is it gonna? And then I was like, it's kind of the same thing, without spoiling it so much. But
it's similar, but Hereditary didn't speak to me for whatever reason because I remember Shannon and Wallace really pushed that movie on me, and so I sat down and watched it, and it was a good movie and had a lot of very
that's a hard watch too.
Yeah, especially, and this is in the beginning, so I'm not going to label this as a spoiler, but the little girl leaning out of the car was a very difficult thing to watch.
Don't you just hate that brother though? You're like, you fucking douche. Don't do this. Just be a nicer son.
Sort of, but also the process of events there was so unlikely that I think that you couldn't really blame him for it. It was just yes, he was being a douche, but also he definitely did not mean to kill his sister in a pretty horrific way.
But I feel like the aftermath too. He just
well,
got home and car's back.
Well, I think what I loved about that whole sequence was that the shock factor. I thought that Ari Aster did a really great job of showing what shock can do to a person. And so, the fact that he did just kind of go home, what are you going to do in
That's
that
very
scenario?
true. Yeah.
Other people, anyone can react in any sort of way to something that horrific happening to you. And so I thought it was a really interesting way to go about it.
That's a very valid take. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I watch a lot of analysis of these types of movies. So I watch theories and explanations and stuff after I watch it because I get hyper focused. And I watched one about Hereditary recently where it was it turns out that the supernatural is happening to them, and this cult is engineering all of these different things. So there's a strong suggestion in the film that even the death of the daughter, the way that it happened, it was orchestrated.
Yeah, I would take that. I love diving in deep. Like you
Yeah.
kind of get into a wormhole on YouTube and like watching all the reviews, and it makes you appreciate the filmmaking so much more.
Oh, yeah.
And the layers to those stories. But then you also just have some images that like stick with you that like never leave your mind.
Ooh.
So yeah.
This is a good question, I guess, then. Like, it doesn't need to be anything gory, unless it is gory, but like, what's a film image that sticks with you? Like,
Well, with Hereditary, for me, it's not when she dies; it's his face. I always like go back to like the shot where he's sitting in the driver's seat of the car and he's realizing what happened, and just I think that was Nat Wolff.
It's Alex.
Alex Wolff.
Okay,
I
Shannon.
always get confused.
I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay, and this is right on point with what you're saying too. So Mike got me started on a new show yesterday called The Consultant, and it's Christoph Waltz, and it's on Amazon. And he's watching, and he's like, I think it's got that kid from Hereditary. I'm like, Alex Wolff. We Google it. It's Nat Wolff. We're like, oh my god,
Those
it's his
little
older
bastards.
brother. But the ending of the first episode, there is an image, and I don't want to spoil it, but it happens, and you're like, what the fuck is this show? And it's been stuck with me since I watched it yesterday. And now, like 3 episodes later, I'm like, I gotta know what happens. Like you're kind of hooked by it. But it is a very graphic, like forced fellatio that you were it was, and it comes out of nowhere. Like, sorry if you're gonna watch The Consultant, I don't want to spoil it for you. I should have prefaced before I gave that away, but
forced fellatio is definitely
it was definitely, I mean, that was an image that I wasn't expecting to have, but it's also something not gory. It was
It's
just
shocking.
Uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
Like that's not something I want to keep replaying behind these eyes. Yeah,
well,
it's there.
it's interesting because though we brought up this particular topic because last night, like an hour before I was leaving work, my coworker, one of them, who's like an interesting arty, like middle-aged Jewish woman who like very well tuned in with film and everything, was asking me if there was a place to view Straw Dogs. Are you guys familiar with Straw Dogs?
No.
I know that title, and I want you to talk about it because it's kind of like in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and the answer is you can't actually. There's no place really to stream the original 1971 version with Dustin Hoffman. And what it was Sam Peckinpah. I don't know if you're familiar with him as a director.
It's a great name, though.
He was a like hippie Western director that all of his movies dealt mostly with like the death of the West and re-examinations of like masculinity, sexual violence, and like all sorts of like all of his movies were deconstructions of Westerns as opposed to like the typical John Wayne movie. But he himself was like a huge misogynist, a drunk and abusive person too. So it was interesting that like a lot of his movies dealt with like the less glamorous sides of Westerns. But he occasionally did movies that weren't Westerns, and he did one called Straw Dogs, which takes place in England in the 70s, where Dustin Hoffman and his wife moved to this like sleepy little Welsh town, I think it is, where she's from, and they encounter like a lot of dislike from the locals here, and it actually culminates in a fairly graphic double rape scene.
Oh, no, yeah.
Which is
No,
like, I took a class on Peckinpah, which is the only place I've seen this movie, and our teacher had to preface it by saying that like, just so you know, this trigger warning, and this was a trigger warning in 2007, like, this has a very graphic scene for which the movie is most famous for. And for some reason, they decided to remake this movie like 10 years ago with Alexander Skarsgård.
That's what I was going to say. I knew he was. I was like, doesn't it have True Blood in it? Wasn't it Eric Northman?
I love Alexander Skarsgård.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes.
I love Bill
but
Skarsgård.
I know you have a crush on the creepy Skarsgård.
I
No.
love Bill Skarsgård too.
I
Did
know.
you see
Did you see
Barbarian?
Barbarian?
Oh, I could talk
I have
about
not seen
Barbarian.
Barbarian
Oh
yet.
my!
I need to.
Oh, please.
So good.
I would
Watch
love
it.
to come back and talk about Barbarian and Pearl and
seen that.
X.
I haven't seen Pearl or X either. I
Those
saw
are
him
on
like
my
no
list.
movies
So
last year.
I will tell you Barbarian, not to derail completely,
Yeah.
but what a great.
Oh my gosh!
I love how it's
Halfway
told.
through,
But
I'm
it's-
like, what did we watch? Was there
I
a
got it.
split? I'm like, are we watching an entirely different movie right now?
It's told so well, but then
Yeah.
there's, I don't want to give it away, but you really feel for how, like, kind of, it's gender specified, but like
Yeah.
women really are living in so many situations out of fear and apprehension, and it's just so flipped for a dude sometimes, and it's like a complete, like, but the switch in the movie is great. You're not
Yeah.
anticipating it. Bill Skarsgård is fantastic.
I love him so much.
So great. And then Justin Long, God, you just hate him. You just want he's
Oh my
so
God.
great in it.
If
He's
Justin
so
Long is in this
great
movie,
it.
I'm sold. So,
Yeah, so we love Justin Long, but we also
Love
hate
to
him
hate him in this movie.
if you can pull that off as an actor, then that means you're a very good actor.
It's
I think.
like, and it came to me, they were like, do you like weird horror movies? I'm like, is this going to be like Tusk? Because I don't want to, no thanks. They're like, well, what's funny is Justin Long is in this one too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
I finally watched Tusk because my sister's boyfriend
haven't seen it.
had told me to watch it for years, and it just popped up like as I was going through. Like I watched Kevin Smith's documentary, and I was like, let's take in all of his movies I haven't seen. Tusk is a very an incredibly bizarre movie. Tonally, you haven't seen it?
Oh, no, yeah.
I haven't.
So what's funny is I feel like I've told this story maybe to a couple people, but it was when Mike and I like first started dating, and he's like, download some movies for me to watch on the plane. So I was just like going through it, and I randomly just was like, this looks fun, and I downloaded it. So he lands, he goes, do you have any idea what that movie was? He's like, I watched that on a plane. I'm like, well, when you, like, why didn't you stop it? Like, no one is forcing you to continue watching. He's like, it was like a car wreck. I couldn't turn away. He's like, and every time someone came over, I like had to shield like my tablet so no one could see what was going on. But then he got back and he made me watch it. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I did that to you.
It's such a bizarre, because also like there's that weird.
Johnny Depp's character.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Johnny Depp.
Right?
Johnny Depp is in it in
It's like
a
a French Canadian.
Oh, it's
detective.
so bad.
It's got,
I know,
but it
but-
has like Ginger Snap references, and there's like other cult classic things that kind
Listen,
of come up in there.
It is a bizarre movie that can't decide what
Haley
tone
Joel
it wants.
Osment is in it.
Haley Joel Osment's
Yeah, Haley Joel
Here's the
Osment's
thing.
the friend. So
Here's the thing.
hey,
Let
they
me
do a
tell you.
podcast in that movie.
They
That's their
do
thing.
a
Yeah.
podcast.
When you tell me a movie is bad, let me remind you that is not a deal breaker.
Did not say
No.
Tusk was bad.
It's I don't like that word. It's
Yeah.
it's
Tusk is a good movie. It just can't decide.
What it is.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there are a lot of comedy parts, and then there's obviously the body horror wasn't quite as shocking as I thought it was going to be.
it's uncomfortable.
It's very
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
those are also graphic
Yeah.
scenes. You know what I mean? Like when you see it, that kind of sticks with you for a little while. So, but it's just so funny how like this topic like kind of evolved to this, but it's like also interconnected.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, speaking of bad movies, did anybody else see that they're coming out with a sequel to The Meg?
Yes.
Bro, I'm
Is the
so
Meg a
pumped.
bmeg movie?
So The Meg. Let
I
me
don't
tell
like
you about The Meg.
I
Let
know
me
what
tell
it
you
is,
about The Meg.
but it seems like it was destined to just be a B horror movie. So like, can
It
those really
is,
be
but
bad?
Yeah.
But it doesn't take itself too seriously, is what
Yeah.
I love about it. And the other part that I love about it is that Jason Statham plays a caricature of himself.
I love Jason Statham.
It's
He is-
hilarious.
That was what was so good about Spy too. was he
I
played
love
a-
that. Thank you. That he makes that whole movie.
Spy has one of my favorite lines ever too, where they're going by porn star names, and Melissa McCarthy's like, "Oh yeah, it's the name of your first pet, and then the street you grew up on. Oh, my porn star name is Meatballs Martin Luther King Boulevard."
Jason Statham's character in that is so great because he always messes up. Like you think he's like, I'm going to save the day, and then he just messes everything
Do
up.
not go in there. Do
He's-
not do that.
He's the best. And Amber Valentine, that other comedian, that British comedian.
Yeah, so she's shown up.
She's very funny too. She's been in a few things, and I can't think of that either. But
Lauren has got me into watching more of like British panel shows. Like we watch a lot of Big Fat Quiz now, and
yeah.
that's the only other place I've seen her. She pops up on one of these like British panel shows where they also don't take themselves too
I
seriously.
mean, they
and-
can make Meg 2, 3, 4 as
I'll
long
watch
as
every single
Statham
one.
is in it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you can beat up giant sharks all day long. Not a problem.
I feel like Jason Statham, like a lot of his movies are sort of dumb action movies, but he generally hasn't taken himself too seriously. Like The Transporter, he gets himself into a shirtless oil fight with somebody.
That's
like there's
hilarious.
no way that he was doing that and being like, yes, people are going to love this. It was like, no, this is ridiculous.
It's how far can you push the limit? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I remember I was somehow caught a clip of a Fast and Furious movie. I have no idea what part in the series it was, but they
Yeah.
were flying a car in the stratosphere, like to go battle a plane.
Yep.
And that
I'm
was,
sorry, what?
Right, I was like,
They
oh,
continually get
technology
more
has
and more-
advanced. Like, I did not recall this in the first movie, where the cars just took off and flew into the air. and
Honestly, the only thing I
battled
remember from the
airplanes.
first movie is that Dom loves Corona. Like,
Oh
any
my
beer you
God,
want, as
right?
long as it's a Corona.
And then you get older, people are like, what's wrong with you? Stop drinking Corona. This isn't Fast and
But it
Furious.
worked because like every party I went to when
With
I was
a
like a young
Corona.
drinker, I was like, give me a Corona because Vin Diesel told me to.
Vin Diesel told me to.
Oh my God.
I saw a meme the other day, and it was like Vin Diesel was so perfectly cast because his real name is Vehicle Identification Number Diesel.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
And that got me. That got me good. But
Yeah.
I'm excited. Like I remember watching the Meg. I'm like, this is exactly what I was hoping it would be.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just something fun. That's the thing. I think I said this on the podcast before, is like Ryan and I, we were talking about going to see a movie, and he was like, well, what's it rated? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, you're going to go see a movie without seeing what it's rated?
What's
I'm
a
like,
rating?
absolutely
Come on,
I am.
yeah.
I'm like, these are just randos who decide what's good and what's bad. I want to decide for myself, God damn it.
Yeah.
you can have like MPAA, but it's like MPS, like motion, whatever, the rating is just by Shannon. It's like, shut up and watch the movie.
Yeah, does anybody really pay attention? Because I remember ratings were a little bit more of a thing when we were kids going to movies. Like, we had to buy a PG-13 ticket to go see an R-rated movie.
That's Poltergeist that did that. That's the trivia, is that there was only PG ratings and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So those two movies were rated PG. And then everyone was like up in uproar that it's sensitive and graphic violence. And that's when they made the PG-13 rating.
Mm-hmm.
But no one, like, how do you card a kid? Like, what do you do?
Oh,
I remember-
I'm sorry. I meant to say, he was like, what are the reviews like? My
Oh,
bad.
not the
My
rating.
bad.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
My
one of those stories I remember too, like when I used to listen
Fuck
to
ratings anyway.
Yeah,
No, just,
when I used to listen to commentaries on DVDs, the South Park guys, like in their early years, had some weird vendetta against Wild Wild West, the Will Smith and Kevin Kline
that is
bomb.
a terrible movie.
But I didn't know why.
fucking love Wild Wild
Well,
West.
here was the reason they hated
I
it.
love it
But it's
so
terrible.
fucking much.
The reason they hated it was really funny is because South Park the movie didn't do horribly well just because it was an R-rated comedy movie. But Wild Wild West inexplicably made a ton of money when South Park opened, and they said they hated it because they thought that kids were essentially buying tickets to Wild Wild West and then going to see South Park. So like they lost a lot
Yes.
of movie. Or lost a lot of money on the movie, and Wild Wild West inexplicably made a shit ton of money.
that makes sense.
So I do have a funny story about ratings. So you know this, I used to work at AMC theaters. And when
Yeah.
I first started to work for the theater, this lovely film called The Happy Time Murders came out.
Oh, Lord.
And it was, has anyone seen it?
I have
It
not.
keeps popping. It's Melissa McCarthy, and it's actually Brian Henson directed it. So I thought that maybe it would be a good movie. It's like Greg the Bunny.
What year is this?
So this came out 2017. I
Yeah,
would
it's-
say.
Okay,
It's
so not
reasonably
too long
recent.
ago.
Yeah. So basically, it is basically Muppets, but or like what more like Sesame Street, I guess. But they're
Yeah.
all
I love
they're,
Muppets.
but it's rated R. And so a lot of unhinged things happen in this movie, and a lot of parents.
It's like
when this-
Avenue Q.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of parents.
Except not nearly as clever.
When this movie came out, didn't look really far into it.
Oh, no.
And so I kept having parents come out with their kids, and I would warn them before going in. I would say this is a rated R film. I see you have young children. Are you sure? And they're like, yes, I'm sure. I'm
Read
the
the
parent. I know what I'm
synopsis.
talking about. And then they'd come out of the film and you're like, that was disgusting. And I'm like, and very early
I told
on,
you.
Well, this is exactly why ratings exist.
very early on, there is a lot of puppet cum in the film.
Puppet cum.
So
I
much
don't
puppet
think
cum.
that's the first time I've heard those two words together.
Is it
Now
like
I
fluff?
need
Is
to
it-
see
is it
this.
all
fluff?
over the place.
This is exciting, Shannon. I am
And
intrigued.
So then the parents would come out and be like, I can't believe you're showing this movie. I'm like, well, yeah, we're showing it to adults.
Yes.
We're not, but the other thing I loved about
that's
working
so
at the movie
funny.
theater is when people didn't know the name of the movie they were coming to see. So for
that's the
Happy
best.
Time Murders, I got a lot of really fun variations of the name. My favorite one was like Angry Puppets. Like, I want to see Angry Puppets, please. And I was like, you mean the Happy Time Murders? And like, yeah, that one.
It's like Sausage Party.
Yes, I fucking
Love
Sausage
Sausage Party.
I thought I was gonna hate it, but then I watched it. I was like, oh my god, this is exactly my kind of
I was
humor.
in the theater and I watched adults walk out. I'm like, you guys can't handle it.
Exactly.
I was hilarious.
They're not comfortable enough with their own sexuality in cartoon or puppet form.
No, they're not. I mean, you gotta love puppets doing it. That's hilarious.
The
Well, and it was like a graphic scene too, and I think like a cow was involved.
I gotta see it though, because like I just imagine like their arms and like the strings being held, like going crazy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
it's
like,
on HBO because I've
Mm-hmm.
encountered it a couple of times and been like, nah, I'm not.
If you're just watching, if you're just in for something stupid to laugh at, like it's
Well, I think I'm going to watch this tonight now. So.
I need to add that to the list. That's
because it's
fun.
offensive. But it's like it's one of those things where it's like you just need it to laugh, basically.
The one of the only things I remember fondly from the Man Show actually was that they did a segment which was sock puppet porn. For one thing, which was hilarious. Like it really stands up, I think, today. And it made me think of it when you were talking about puppet cum, because they just use that like spray name. String that you used to get in stores
that's
as
so
the money
funny.
shot.
So that stuff is like really bad for the environment because we sprayed it all over the place when I was a kid, and like years later it was still there on the pavement. Like it doesn't go away.
No, it does not decompose.
So those cum stains, those are there for all eternity.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about we were talking about puppets and like weird. Oh, I had something on the tip of my tongue. Now I can't think of it.
They're called taste buds.
That's good.
But that was a mom joke.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Okay, just think puppet cum.
Shit.
Oh, I can't
Hey,
think
this
about
is an
it too
explicit
long.
episode.
It was I used to love Crank Yankers, which I think was like
I have no idea what that is.
So I was in college 2002 through 2005 essentially.
I was in elementary school.
I know Crank Yankers because I was also in college about that time.
It was a show on Comedy Central, and they were puppets, and it was like fake phone calls, like crank calls. But it was like Sarah Silverman was always a voice on it, and then it was Jimmy Kimmel was always on there, and Adam, the other guy from the Man Show? I can't think of it.
Adam Carolla.
Adam Carolla. Mm-hmm. And then they were like always spoofing celebrities, and there were like a million people who would do guest voices and stuff. But it was just like the most obscene and obnoxious phone calls that you could imagine, but they were being acted out by puppets.
That's hilarious.
So it was, I mean, there were some really, really funny ones, and there were some really great reoccurring characters too, but that was a great show.
Yeah, Crank Yankers was a fun. The thing that I like, the only place I tend to see it referenced these days is when Jon Stewart had his famous showdown with Tucker Carlson that got Tucker Carlson fired from CNN, and Carlson tried to say that he was like indoctrinating people. Jon Stewart's response was, "I am on a show that is followed by puppets making prank phone calls."
That's
you are on CNN. We are not the same.
That's so true. That's so true.
I love Jon Stewart.
The best.
I'm trying to think of other good puppet movies. I did see Greg the Bunny for the first time a couple of years
Never
ago.
seen it.
It's a TV show, actually. Actually, believe it or not, a funny and like. Have you ever watched this show, Allie?
No.
So the show is like it takes place in a world where like puppets and humans
Is it animated
coexist.
or is it live?
No, it was live action with
Okay.
Eugene Levy, Seth Green. And then
I did hear about this. Yeah.
a couple other odd people, like the warden from the Shawshank Redemption was like the human that was on the show. And it takes place in this weird world where puppets and humans like are separate entities that exist together. And Greg is like Seth Green's best friend who accidentally gets cast on it's like Imagination Junction or something. It's Sesame Street. And it's
Imagination Junction.
it was supposed to be like an edgy R-rated like Avenue Q type of thing, and it wasn't as edgy as like some of these other things, but I think that's what made it better. It was a it's weird to say this, but for a show about puppets living with humans, it was very well grounded in reality.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of puppet on human sex in the show too, which
And all right, now you've sold me.
yeah.
I mean, I was sold earlier on Puppet Cum, so if you could just step it up a notch, I don't know if...
think
I think we're just going to change the name of the podcast to Puppet Cum with Shannon and Al.
We are all on board.
My
with
mom was
Puppet
like, what are you
Cum.
guys going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. But
Puppet Cum.
Puppet Cum.
I love it.
I don't know if I'm ballsy enough to make that the title of this episode.
Maybe not.
How
I know
Shannon
I'm
and
not.
Allie talk about Puppet Cum.
And that's the last time I'm a guest on this show. No,
Oh gosh. No.
no. I mean, there's...
You're stuck with us.
It's fine. I mean, I do think that there should be more risks in filmmaking. I don't know, like, and you do want to push the boundaries, right? But
Sure.
like, you don't want to offend everybody because you still
Yeah.
want people to see it.
See, if you're offending people just for offensiveness sake, people can spot that a mile away.
It's like forced.
Well, that kind of happened with this was before Shannon, you ever did a VidJam with us, but we had a person who was in the VidJam circle who I don't know if I've talked about before, but he definitely tried to just make movies that were offensive for offensive sake, and it sort of reached a crescendo when we used to do these cute little haiku. Do you remember the VidJam haikus, Allie?
I'm trying to place who this person is without.
You never met him.
Okay.
And he's far removed himself and has burnt like all of his bridges because he was a pretty terrible human being. But anyway,
Are they still in this area?
I don't know. I don't care.
Okay.
If I saw him again, I would never
Interact.
Yeah. Well, I got major red flags with this person a lot because, like every other new VidJam filmmaker, like I met him at a screening, hated his movie because he did a movie about a veteran experiencing PTSD who then proceeds to murder his entire family over a 15-minute movie, which I do not believe that's how PTSD works. And it was very brutal. And then he put at the end a support our troops message, which I thought was like pandering, trying to make it into a PSA and trying to explain his bad decisions in the movie. But the video haikus, going back to this, they were these really cute ideas where it was like, what is it, a 7-second shot, a 5-second shot, and a 7-second shot to make a short film.
Oh, yeah.
And we did a lot of these, and Connection was the last one we ever did because of what happened. And a lot of other people, like, did cutie little movies. This particular person did a woman being roofied at a bar and then being raped, like, on screen for his 757. And it became a whole big thing because it posted directly to the VidJam page and then was auto-playing for people. So we took it down while we tried to figure out exactly what to do. And this is why there's content warnings on VidJams now. But this person was unapologetically pretty awful about it. And it was not even the third really offensive movie that he submitted. He's welcome to submit if he wants to again. It's just he took his talents elsewhere.
Yeah, I can't say those are. I mean, I don't want to watch those. I mean, just in general.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're like, yes, PuppetCom, but we're like, no to this guy, really. Yeah.
Well, see, and that's the thing is like it's hard because
PuppetCom is consensual, by the way.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't recall any problematic things in Happy Time Murders other than PuppetCom, but. So here's where we run into kind of the issue, right? So, for example, like Game of Thrones got a whole bunch of shit for like things that happened to Sansa, and like there were pretty graphic scenes in that show, and so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can tell a story with it, and it can be grounded in trying to get us to understand how painful it is and how visceral and graphic it is. And see, that's the thing is like, yeah, it makes us uncomfortable. But, are there benefits to showing that kind of thing on screen, which I go back and forth on.
With Sansa, it was a little, just to clarify, actually that was a little different because...
It wasn't a haiku though also, right?
But they didn't show it. That was the big deal with Sansa, was they didn't show her being raped.
Yeah.
Theon had to stay in there and watch, and they just showed Theon's
perspective,
expression. Which was more disturbing almost, because you didn't actually see... And Outlander actually did something very similar in a scene in one of their seasons as well. And it was like, they didn't show what was going on. They just showed like the bar where it was happening. It was happening in a back room, and then like her yelling, but like all of the patrons just not caring in the bar. And I thought that was an even more disturbing. But also, like you were saying, Allie, that makes a statement and takes a risk, is that like the statement there is people are indifferent to people being assaulted.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know there are shows out there that do show more than that, so not necessarily like straight up smut, but
there's a difference when I think it's part of the plot, and it's like, well, yeah, like this is an uncomfortable part that's happening in this, like
exactly.
It's not, you're not doing it just for the torture porn aspect of it, and that's different than watching someone who's only making movies or doing like a short series purposely to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, with Sansa particularly, like one of my favorite episodes of the entire show is Battle of the Bastards.
Yes.
And there's like a scene where Sansa is like talking to Jon, trying to reason with him about how to do the battle, and she says it to him at one point. It's like, I'm not going back to Ramsay. So I like, and looking at her like face, and that you remember all of the things. So that's very plot relevant in that moment, and adds a lot of very like weighty relevance to what's going on.
Yeah, I never had when it came to like Game of Thrones, like there were a lot of moments that were uncomfortable, but I felt that like a lot of people got on Game of Thrones for being gratuitous, but I never felt that way when I watched it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, especially having the context, have you read the books at all?
I've read the first 2.
They're pretty spot on, though. I mean, the violence is almost word for word.
Well, they threw in a lot more.
And they get rid of the animal violence in the show
yes.
more than they do in the the book has a lot of animal violence.
But they threw
too.
in a lot more smut in the TV show than was in the book.
Because it's HBO, you guys.
Yeah,
So, you know,
exactly.
you want to watch it.
I mean, True Blood.
True Blood was
another good
vampire
example.
porn. And then I actually rewatched that. I'm like, how did we think? Like, it still has like things that are captivating at times. And I'm like, wow, I was really into this show. I was a completely different person. The only thing I wanted to just comment, it's interesting that it's like the torture that Theon got more from Ramsay. I feel like Ramsay tortured and like raped Theon more, like as a person to break him down more than he kind of ever did with Sansa. Like he completely destroyed him as a person. But we don't look at it kind of the same way because it's not like a sexual, physical altercation of violence. But it's like he changed who he was completely, and he mutilated him.
Yeah, there is some
you
sexual
know? So
violence that was perpetrated on Theon there.
It's it's interesting. You know, you think about like the rape scenario or like man against woman, but I'm like, you know, tables get turned a lot, and I don't think we focus enough on the genders, like on male versus male violence or female versus male violence, which usually kind of gets played off where it's funny, you know,
this was
or
a big,
nudity, you know what I mean? And
with Outlander, this was a big deal. I don't know if either of you have watched Outlander at all. It's a fantastic show, and it does like there's a lot of like steamy, porny scenes, but they're done differently because most of the episodes are directed by women, so it's like a different sort of angle for it, and but there is a lot, especially in the very first season, a lot of male-on-male sexual violence that Jamie, who's the main character, experiences at the hands of like the British captain, who's like, and this is over a period of years. This isn't even just like a one-off thing. And a lot of they did get raves at the time for like dealing with that aspect of like, yeah, like you were saying, sort of like the gender. It can happen to both.
Yeah.
I only bring Mike's pointed this out a lot, and I've noticed it more and more. And what we were watching, whatever the latest Thor movie was,
Love and Thunder,
and with the goats, which I thought were hilarious.
I haven't seen it.
That cracked me up.
But spoil it away.
But there's a part where you know it's Chris Hemsworth, and he's just like stripped naked in a whole room of people, and it's like. You know, people are catcalling and whistling and like jokes are made. I'm like, if the tables were turned though, you would feel that she's being objectified or it's being sexualized. But here it's meant to be funny. I'm like, but this poor guy is naked in a room full of other people.
I would be interested to hear your thoughts on Last Night in Soho when you get...
I definitely, I got to watch it.
Yeah, because a lot of these themes that we're talking about are very prevalent in that movie. And it's so funny because I thought it was going to go one way in terms of like, you know, violence. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, is this about to go the way I think it is? And then it doesn't. And so I'd be really interested.
Yeah.
It turns into like, without any spoilers or anything, the twist in the movie, which you can probably figure out partway through, like Shannon did, completely changes what the horror of the movie was.
Right.
Which is very... I don't know. I found it very interesting, and I can't think of a lot of movies that pulled it off quite the same.
Did you guys see The Menu? Did you watch that one?
I haven't, but I want to.
Yeah,
my
brother-in-law said this was his favorite movie last year, so I want
The Menu?
Yeah, The Menu.
I'd be interested because it's
Taylor-Joy
very
is in
similar.
both of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing where you think the horror is one thing, but then it turns out to be something different. But it's like a humanity take also. But it was very interesting. I don't know if I'd put it up there as like my favorite movie, but like it's definitely one that I really thought a lot watching it, and I'm a big fan of her too. She's
And now I did walk away from Last Night in Soho thinking like this might be one of my favorite horror movies.
All right, I gotta check it out.
The thing is, it's not even just like, it's a lot of different movies. It's a horror movie. It's a noir movie.
Yeah.
At some point, it's kind of just a college movie too.
Yeah.
Like,
kind of like gosh, there's just so many layers to it. I mean, I don't want to say coming of age movie, but I mean, the main character does go through some transformations personally throughout the film. So
There's like a musical element in it also,
Oh yeah,
right? Yeah.
there are lots of good musicals, dances. Oh my God, they do like Shannon was talking about cinematography.
yeah,
The
I mean
mirror
the film
scenes.
is gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yeah, the mirror scenes, and then I was watching like a how they made it of the scene. There's a scene with. So I don't know how much you know about the plot, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. But this girl starts going kind of back in time
Okay.
in her dreams, and so she's kind of mirrored against this woman who's a young singer in 1960s London.
Okay.
And so there's a scene where there's Matt Smith and this girl and Anya Taylor-Joy, and they keep showing they keep
Yeah,
like,
okay.
he's dancing with her, but they
It's a
keep
play
switching
and
between the two of
very
them.
cool. Okay.
And I watched how they did it, and I was like, and I thought it was really interesting because there's a couple of different ways you could do it cinematically. Thank you.
cinematographically.
Yeah, cinematically, but they did it kind of
With
like,
a camera.
no, but they did it really like instead of like just kind of having both, because what I would do to do it kind of, I don't want to say easier, but I'd film the scene with each actress and then just cut in between. But the way that they did it was they actually had them like running in and out of the shot.
Like kind of doing it in live time. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't
Well,
think they would film it so practically, but that was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
how they kept it a one shot because
That's
otherwise,
practical effects, man. That's what gets me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, that was kind of what we tried a practical effect vid jam one time, and in that vein with me and Sam, where we did it in. It was the same house we shot The Dentist in, but I can't remember the name of it.
Peter Allen.
Oh,
House?
Peter
yeah,
Allen
the Peter
House.
Allen House. And we did. It was Sam's idea to try to do like an Eternal Sunshine kind of thing, where actors were just switching clothes and changing scenarios in and out. And for an 8-minute movie, we did like 5 or 6 passages of time, and it was Nate, Bob, and Ashley were the couple dealing with a ghost couple that lived in this new house
I
that they
think
bought.
I remember that one. Yeah.
It was one of the most fun vid jams I ever did because it was literally 10 hours of rehearsing / figuring out how we were going to do everything, and then 1 hour of shooting. But it was so funny because it was like an orchestrated dance where production assistants all had their place to be, all had their things that they were responsible for. It was the first movie I've ever worked on with Wallace too. He came and was a PA for it. And the reason I remember that is like we had this perfect take that the first 7 minutes went absolutely fabulously, and then Wallace jumped his cue at one point and just walked out of a room and across the camera. I'm like, no, we had this perfect take, and then somebody just like, because it was an orchestrated like big dance. And
Wallace.
It's like a lot of stage theatrics,
Yeah.
making sure everything's perfectly timed and comes from this direction and, it's caught and received. And
I was the camera operator too, and I didn't even know Wallace was there because he was perfectly fine with it for every other one, but just that one, he just jumped it a little early. So it's like, oh, and surprise, you were there.
Yeah, I really do enjoy like the practical effects of that. And then another movie that comes to mind that I thought it was really cool to see like behind the scenes was Split with James McAvoy.
Oh, that's a good one,
that
too.
is
Yeah.
a good movie. I have not seen the behind the scenes, but
That was kind of the movie that got M. Night Shyamalan back into the good graces of the
Yeah.
acting public or the filmmaking public.
Well, and that's the whole thing is like with James McAvoy, like he didn't. I mean, this is pretty common knowledge now, or at least for people who look into movies. But like, there's many scenes where he's flipping from personality to personality, and there were like no cuts in between those scenes.
he's doing
did
that.
it.
Yes.
And so, like, I think that's really impressive. And so, like, not having to kind of be like, okay, cut, let's reset into this new personality. All right, action. Like, it was so seamless. And I think that really lent to how well the movie actually did turn out.
Oh yeah,
What's the
it does not
sequel?
work without
Was it
James.
Glass? Was that
Glass.
So
Yeah.
I read
Yeah.
a review, and I think Samuel L. Jackson. Does he reprise or Bruce
Yeah,
Willis?
everybody
They all
reprises their
reprise the
role.
role. And Bruce Willis, God, I hope he's okay. He's going through a lot of shit right now.
Oh yeah, he's
losing it. But someone had stated in an interview that it was like watching James McAvoy transition from those split characters was not only intimidating in the craft of acting, but terrifying
Yeah.
to see just how in tune he was with the psychosis of his character. And I'm like, yeah, because that real schizophrenics don't know they're doing that. You know what I mean? It's the brain is so fragmented that it's just everything exists in that in that point in time. But his conveyance definitely in Split, which I saw, was fabulous, I thought. But I didn't see Glass yet, but that's what they commented on his style.
Glass
Yeah.
was
It wasn't as good as Split, I
It
thought.
probably
and
not. No.
It ended like they had sort of teased that this was going to be like a bigger, maybe almost M. Night Shyamalan cinematic universe, and they end that pretty
Poorly.
pretty poorly, pretty bluntly, and pretty spectacularly. Glass is still an okay movie. It's just like Split was such a, and I remember there were a lot of people clamoring for James McAvoy to get some Oscar love for Split, but it was like the movies released in January, which is when Split got released, almost never get love for those sort of things, and it was kind of like a.
It's not Oscar season per se, you know.
I will say this about like talking about continuous shots, since we're on this topic as well. I did rewatch Unbreakable in the last like year or two, and I didn't remember this when I was a kid watching this, but the first shot of the movie is this fantastic one shot of Glass being born, and they use just all these mirrors placed around
in the department store.
in the department store.
That is such a, yes.
Featuring
Beautiful.
the guy who played Saeed on Oz was also the doctor, who's one of like low-key my favorite actors, and I can't think of what his name is off the top of my head.
That's such a great opening too, because the tension in that room is so disturbed because the baby is hysterically crying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, what happened? And then the doctor's like, his arms and legs are broken. You're like, oh my God, like what a horrible way to be born.
Yeah.
But the telling with the mirror is, I forgot about that opening sequence. That's such a good one. Yes. Yep.
What are this is a good question too, to transition more from Puppet Cum. What are your favorite like technical scenes that you've seen in movies? Like it could be a one shot, it could just be something like really clever that they used to shoot something, or maybe just a beautiful like shot.
You gotta think on it for a second and see what's kind of like that sticks out.
Yeah. Oh dang, you gotta stump us, Hal.
I like a story that's told from a perspective, like the person who's like Theon. You're watching his reaction to what's happening over there. So kind of like character profiles like that, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like a take where it's like something where you're supposed to be focusing on one thing, but then it shifts, and then your attention is just brought to whatever other monstrosity is supposed to be there. Like you didn't know you were going to see that, but just from the camera angle, it brought you in there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example.
So this is a movie that isn't really that great of a movie. It's kind of like a maybe slightly above average movie that I just rewatched a couple of weeks ago, was The Rules of Attraction. Have you either?
No.
Rules of Attraction is like a very like, it's supposed to be a quasi sequel to American Psycho because it's Patrick Bateman's brother.
Blah 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 blah.
But there were a couple. I'd forgotten like that they kind of throw everything at a wall cinematically to see what sticks in that movie, and there were a lot of interesting like just like cinematography choices. Like there were scenes, for instance, where like Shannon Sossaman and James Van Der Beek are talking to each other, and they just do, rather than cut between them, they just do a split screen with both of their faces, so you see both sides of the conversation as it's happening, which I thought was cool. And then like one of the characters goes for a semester abroad to, I think it's Amsterdam or London, and they have him just frenetically narrate his entire semester there over a period of like 2.5 minutes, and then just do incredibly quick takes all over like Europe to explain what his story was. And like, even though the movie is kind of not a good movie, I thought that all of the like artistic choices with the things that they had more control over, like the cinematography, were super interesting, and a really like I was saying, it's kind of like a film student threw everything at the wall.
It is, yeah. There's good parts of that, I will say, camera wise, but that's not a. Watch that movie once, don't really ever see it again.
It's not that great of a movie.
It's not a great movie.
No.
When you brought up the Patrick Bateman reference, I will say there are some really great shots in American Psycho, especially with mirrors and like where he's closing it and he peels the skin mask off, and you really get that he's transitioning to his psychopathic character. Like that's an interesting, with the medicine cabinet too.
We've talked about this on the podcast before, but one of my favorite like directed scenes ever are all of the Willem Dafoe scenes. Like, are you aware of like how Mary Herron directed that?
Yep, I totally am, because I just read this the other day.
Oh, so you just read this?
I just read that she directed him in 3 series. And one was as if he knew that Patrick was the killer. Yeah. One as if he had no idea that Patrick was the killer. And then I don't remember what the third one was. Like,
it was just didn't care.
Just like a general, like, I'm just doing my job. But then she spliced them together in the editing process to always keep the audience guessing. And that's one of the most is like, does he know? Or like, he knows. He doesn't know. He knows. And
It's
like, you
brilliant
realize
because
it's so
it also like
smart.
shows Patrick's frame of mind at that point because he's a psycho and is just jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool idea that nobody else has really tried in a movie, which I thought would have been a brilliant, like would have inspired 100 copycats kind of thing. But I guess American Psycho is one of the few places where that would make sense diegetically, is like you're in the mind of a psycho, so he has a very tenuous grasp on his own reality. And Willem Dafoe plays that so perfectly, too.
I like it when filmmakers find a way. Disney does this a lot with animation, but to categorize things by shapes. So, like, villains are usually very triangular or, like, oval-shaped and lanky, and, like, heroes are more boxy-shaped or rectangular and, like, circular. So stuff like that I always find interesting, especially, like, in ways to define characters. And they do kind of do that sometimes in real-life films, but it's harder to see.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to animation, I really love where we've come in terms of like how pretty things are.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Disney movie is Up. I just think that it's
Up.
so pretty, and I love the art in it. It's just like it's
a great story, though, also.
Yeah.
I love Up. I love Wall-E still.
Wall-E.
I think
I
Wall-E
love
is
him.
great.
Well, Doug either is getting his own series of shorts or has his series of
I think
shorts.
he
I
has.
watched
He
it on
has a
Disney
series.
Plus.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Disney shorts are also fabulous, and the
Yeah.
Pixar ones too, because most of them are no dialogue. It's just all inferences and deductions that you make from the characters and the way
Good
that they
filmmaking,
paint
yeah.
Yep. And I think, not to call back to my toilet paper movie, but that also was a silent. There's no dialogue
Yeah.
in there. You know, it's
That's
just
why part of the reason it was so brilliant was that like you displayed the spatial relationship between you and the toilet paper and your reactions perfectly well.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there's things that like you can be like, oh, this is like very Wes Anderson. You know, it's like overhead, quick cuts.
I was gonna say that.
That kind of stuff. But like, I think more like I love the Edgar Wright quick cuts. Like, you know, the flushing the toilet, the sink turns on and off. It's putting milk back in the fridge. Like just all of those task items that come together.
Because we tried that for our vid jam that was the timeshare one where you were the real estate agent.
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
That was one of my favorite all-time ones. And I remember
was
you
hilarious.
had told us during the process when we were writing it, you're like, yeah, I want to try to do like Edgar Wright quick cuts and zoom. So I got my zoom lens. It is a lot harder.
It's very hard to
like
do that.
I had to do like 20 takes of every single zoom because you not just have to get the zoom correct motion-wise on like somebody's, like Cotter's hand with the knife is a good example. You have to get it in focus at the same time too. So it's like you're trying to do two things with your hands at the same time.
That was a fun shoot out in the woods. I remember, I think it was like Chris and Gary running so fast and like Gary getting so dehydrated at the beginning.
Oh
like
my God, I
through
forgot
the
about
shooting
that.
off.
Yeah, he had to like sit on a cool floor for like an hour. Poor Gary, because he really gave his all to that movie and it was fantastic.
That was
but
great.
We were worried he might have to
He
go to
might,
the hospital.
I was going to ask you guys because we're talking about like hard to watch movies. So one of my favorite movies is Spun.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, that's with Brittany Murphy. I've never seen it. But
It's directed by Jonas Ackerlund, who like is known more for music videos. Like he did and his stuff is that movie alone has over 5,000 cuts.
Wow.
So it's meant to be like the jarring, like very quick, like methamphetamine way that you would see through life, like how tweakers are. But it is like where Requiem for a Dream is hard to watch and
Yeah.
Basketball Diaries. This one, it kind of makes it more personal because you can just see how it can happen just like to everyday real life people. You know what I mean? But it's a top recommend. It's on Tubi right now.
Everything is on Tubi now.
Which is my favorite streaming service because it's also, no lie, I watched Showgirls again for the other day. And I'm like, this movie does not get the credit it deserves. It was meant to be so many other things. It is a black comedy. Like you can't take it seriously.
That was Paul Verhoeven.
That
right?
is Paul Verhoeven.
Because that was
God
kind of the
bless
movie
Paul
that ended.
Verhoeven.
It was kind of the movie that ended his career.
No, he came back with Starship Troopers.
Oh, I forgot about Starship
Don't
Troopers.
forget
was
about
later.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah, also a fantastic satire of like. I read. Have you ever read the book Starship Troopers?
I did not know there was a book. Now I feel really dumb.
It is essentially like a fascist manifesto. Like it was given to me by a family member when I was like more impressionably conservative when I was a younger person, and like there's a lot of like it's not really a story. it's basically just all of like the classroom scenes take up like 50% of the book. It's a pretty short book too. It's like 150 pages.
Shannon, have you seen Starship Troopers?
A long time ago.
Okay.
Oh, definitely give it
very
another
long
watch.
time
Please
ago.
give it a rewatch. Don't forget he also did RoboCop.
Because Paul Verhoeven did I don't know why they decided to make a movie out of Starship Troopers, but he very smartly realized that you couldn't make a movie out of a fascist manifesto. And so he made up a lot more of a story with the main character, and he made it more into a satire of like fascist governments and regimes.
Yep.
And there's a lot. Starship Troopers also can't quite decide what movie it wants to be
No,
either.
I
but
don't
it's
think any of his
fantastic.
movies can, and that's the best part. Is like, are we supposed to laugh? Should I be upset right now? Should I be turned on? I don't know what's happening.
I feel like
here.
Casper Van Dien was somebody who should have gotten a better shake. And like I watched Sleepy Hollow again the other day,
Yes.
which
I
is one of
love
three
Yes.
movies Casper
That's
Van
he's
Dien
in.
did.
That's it. What's the
Yeah.
other one? Because I'm
Oh,
gonna be,
he did a George of the Jungle or like a Tarzan
was
remake.
in the sequel. Was he George when Brendan Fraser was it?
No, it is Tarzan. He did like a Tarzan
Okay.
reboot then.
Okay. No, I'm trying to think what else. Like if he was in any other show, even, and you can't.
No, those are the only three I remember from Casper Van Dien. But backtracking a little bit for like the last, 15, 20 minutes of the podcast, AV Club did put out an article this week. It was like 25 movies you can only watch once. And
I've read a bunch of those articles.
Yeah, it was interesting because first off, I realized I've never seen Human Centipede after reading that article.
I don't know if I want to see Human Centipede.
It seems like it's Tusk, but not funny. So
Human Centipede, I've only seen bits and pieces. I had an ex-boyfriend who watched it once, and I was like sleeping, and so I kept waking up at the wrong times. And I don't think you need to watch the Human Centipede.
That is good to know.
Hostel is a
So
hard watch for me. Like I can't usually make it through Hostel because it's just like.
I had no interest in watching
But
Hostel.
like Human Centipede, like I really don't think I have the capacity for this.
No,
and they
I
made
think
like 4 of them.
And I
yeah.
honestly think that it's one of those
Who
ones.
greenlights these projects?
A lot of people, right?
They make money.
Well, that's the thing.
There are people out there who will watch like a body horror movie just to see it. And
Well, see, and that's the thing is like I feel like the Human Centipede exists just to shock, and there's no benefit to it. And a lot of people gets me real mad because you all know I fucking love the Saw franchise, and I know everyone's like, oh, it's torture porn and blah 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 blah, and they would equate it. They would equate the Human Centipede to Saw, and I'll throw
Saw had a lot more
I
going
will
on in
throw
it.
hands.
Yeah.
I have
Throw
to.
hands.
I have to be honest. I'm more afraid of a Saw scenario happening in my life than a Human Centipede scenario.
Oh, don't make me
happening.
choose here.
So I just like hypothetically,
Don't
which
make me choose.
which is Allie more likely to fall into? A Saw scenario where I have to solve a riddle so I don't die, or I subjected myself to have my mouth sewn to the anus of another person.
Yeah.
Tough call, you guys.
Trying to think what
If you throw
getting-
in puppet cum, you know which way I'm going to go.
Oh,
but
puppet cum.
Wherever the puppet cum
wherever
is.
the puppet cum is.
I'm trying to think of other movies on this list to get away from talking about Human Centipede now.
A movie I see on those lists pretty frequently is A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
That's-
And I was thinking of that when we were talking about movies that are hard to watch. But also, I have seen it twice. And the only reason why I've seen it twice, and I might give it another watch, is because, and I stand by this, but Stanley Kubrick his cinematography is just incredible.
Oh, he directed the hell out of that movie. Like, I first saw that movie when I was 17, and even at 17, the assaults and sexual violence in the movie, I was like, I don't want to watch this. This is making me feel like really queasy. And we didn't end up finishing the movie. Like, we stopped when he got to prison. And then I watched it in its entirety, like maybe 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, we kind of maybe missed the most interesting part of it then.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it's like when Alex has to get a comeuppance for everything that he's done.
Yeah.
Only because another meme I saw recently is like, what is it with villains and like crazy people who like to drink milk? And I'm like,
Because they're psychopaths.
Because they're psychopaths. So like they go to the milk bar, which is laced with like LSD,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
like hallucinogenic. But then I was thinking in like Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Bastards is always drinking milk.
Oh,
and
and
then
the cream, too, was
and
another
the cream
big,
was
yeah.
another thing. And then in Get Out, Allison Williams is like very weirdly eating Fruit Loops and drinking milk.
I did not notice
Like
that
a
in Get Out.
complete psychopath. And
God, there was another one I was thinking of.
it's always something
can't
with
think of
milk
it.
though. But like A Clockwork Orange, I watched that once in college and subsequent, I think that was enough for me.
Right. It's one of
It's-
those ones you only.
It's a tough watch.
It's
yeah,
so
it is
fun.
a tough watch.
It's interesting with Clockwork Orange, like I've said this a couple of times about Malcolm McDowell, and it's interesting that his most famous role, which is a Clockwork Orange, he looks nothing like he does in 99% of his other movies because he's an old man in all the other movies.
He was in Last Night in Soho.
Yes, he was.
Interesting.
Wait, are we sure that was him or that was Terrence Stamp?
Oh,
I
was
think.
it? I
Yeah,
thought
because
it was-
Terrence Stamp.
Oh,
very,
you could
right, you're right.
confuse
Very-
those two. They
You're
look
right.
very similar.
Oh, they look. Terrence Stamp
I've
is
made
totally
that
budget
mistake
out
before.
like
You are
Malcolm
right.
McDowell.
Budget Malcolm McDowell. We couldn't get Malcolm McDowell.
No,
we
seriously,
got
there
you
is
a
a
Terrence
budget
Stamp.
version of almost every single actor or actress out there in Hollywood.
Bootleg version. Yeah, I will agree.
Okay, I agree. Okay, I can see it now. Can now have Malcolm McDowell in my brain.
Well, I
and
mean,
I'm
you
like,
fooled me for a second. I was like, yeah, he was. Wait, no, he wasn't.
No, I
Got
had
you.
myself fooled for like a week now.
Trying to think what other movies were on this list. Requiem for a Dream was on the list.
And that's something I've watched many times.
I've watched that movie like four, especially as an impressionable film student. Like, you want to talk about the quick Edgar Wright takes and the
Yeah.
like frenetic music video editing. That's an excellent movie.
That one I've definitely watched way more than like any other like quote unquote like hard to watch movies. I think I don't know why. I probably just we watched it in high school. I remember like in the film editing room and like our teacher was like, "What are you doing here?" We're like, "We're watching the Olympics or like something stupid like that."
The Olympics of ass to ass dildo.
Oh,
right.
God.
It was like. It was probably right at that scene too. We're like, don't let him come in here. We'll never get to watch movies in the TV studio again.
My friends, because my friends and I loved to joke too much about certain things. For some reason, when we were in college, everybody thought the guy who's like ass to ass was the funniest thing in the world because he was just this creepy old man.
That's a Joe. What's his face? That's a dude.
It's actually
That's the
it's Darren
dude.
Aronofsky's uncle because he was also in Pi as like the random person singing "I Only Have Eyes for You" on the train. But if you look him up, he has an entire Wikipedia. It's like one of those fandom Wikipedias. His name is like Uncle Al or something like that. And somebody wrote an entire imagined backstory for how this person ended up being the creepy old man
Oh my God.
screaming ass to ass at the Requiem for a Dream party.
That's really funny.
The internet is a funny place sometimes.
That makes me laugh.
What were some other movies?
That makes me laugh so hard. That's like, what's the movie with Ron Howard's brother, Clint? Like, you know?
The Ice Cream Man?
Yes!
They're finally doing a sequel to it too.
I fucking love that movie.
Oh my god! So I
Did you
have.
ever, Shannon,
I haven't seen it.
oh
no.
my God.
We'll have to have a bad movie night sometime because I love these.
We talk about this all the time.
I
So
know.
this is just random and it's not a dig, but the other day my mom was referencing how like this guy came over to like do something with like HVAC at the house and she's like, he was so handsome. He looked just like Ron Howard. I was like, are we thinking of the same?
He's off-brand.
I was
Ron Howard.
like Archie Cunningham, Ron Howard, and she's like, yeah, but like taller and like better built and like not. I was like, okay, so that's not Ron Howard.
Yeah,
It's like,
so not Ron.
it was just so funny. Like that was her reference.
My friend Suji actually worked on a movie with Clint Howard a couple of months
Clint
ago.
Howard, yes, the brother. of
And she said he is actually not a very good actor at all. Like he's a very nice guy, she said, but he's kind of a bumbling just presence on stage. Like he had trouble remembering lines, she was saying, and stuff like that. But
Oh,
also
I
at this
can't
point he's an
remember
older
my lines
man. So
Yeah.
But Ice Cream Man, every year on my birthday, I have a mandate where my family has to put up with me watching two bad movies with me: Jack Frost and Ice Cream Man.
Do you watch those every year?
For the last 4 years.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
'Cause Jack Frost
Jack
also-
Frost with Michael Keaton.
No.
Oh, we talked about this.
The
There's-
horror movie Jack
Oh,
Frost.
okay, because there's two.
there
Yeah,
are,
there's two.
Yes, I have seen both. So I just wanted to know which one we were going in the direction
If we're
of.
talking about puppets, the snowman in the Jack Frost horror movie, the good one, is so ridiculous looking because it's literally like just a department store snowman that they just have keep killing people with like close-ups and things like that, and it's the dumbest looking thing in the world.
I highly recommend Velocipaster.
Yes, I've seen that as well. That's a
I
local,
haven't seen it, but
that's a
it's-
local movie that was shot around like Downingtown here.
Really?
Yeah, because that's part of the reason I watched that was
What about Llamageddon? Because that
I've
looks
seen
like
Llamageddon.
Llamageddon is great, and Santa Jaws. These are all top. Santa Jaws definitely has a higher production value.
Llamageddon was too much for me. Like Llamageddon, like the kids making the movie because they are kids. leaned way too much in the fact they were making a bad movie. Like, the thing that really irritated me as a filmmaker, and I know that this was intentional, was the one kid kept changing wardrobe from scene to scene, and it's not subtle. In fact, we all thought when we were watching that, I was like, is he a different person every time? But no,
it's like a running gag.
A running gag that there's no continuity with this person, like changing from a bright orange shirt to like a dark green shirt, and then to a bright yellow shirt and baby blue shirt.
Can I tell you, when I was a yearbook advisor at McDevitt the one year, there was a kid who brought in every part of his uniform, and he was in like 10 different club pictures, and he like every picture he changed something on his uniform. So he had like a vest on the one, and then just like a tie on the like.
He's gonna make a great Jeopardy contestant someday.
It was the funniest thing ever,
That's
and I was
hilarious.
like, weren't you wearing a blue shirt before? And he's like, oh, this is my 4th wardrobe change today. And I was like, oh my God forbid you're photographed in the same thing more than once.
Oh, that happened to... So you were probably at this party too, but were you at Jack Howitt's like 70th birthday that he threw?
Yes.
It was so the point of this was it was called the Jack of all trades party, and everybody was supposed to come dressed as a different kind of jack. I showed up as a lumberjack, and then realized that there were like 40 fucking lumberjacks at this party. So I gave up. I went and I just changed into a nice suit and tried to look like a normal party goer. And my uncle, who had seen me earlier the night as a lumberjack, was flabbergasted when he saw me in his suit. He's like, "Hal came here as a lumberjack, didn't he?" And I decided just to fuck with him. So I was like, "No, I've already been in a
That's
suit."
hilarious.
And to this day, he was like, he still is mad because he thought I was driving him crazy. He's like, "I was definitely noticing you in a lumberjack."
So I have 2 completely random thoughts that are not related to this.
Perfect for the podcast.
One of them, we were talking about like villains drinking milk and psychopaths drinking milk and stuff, and I just want to shout out Mark Hamill in Star Wars: The Last Jedi for straight up drinking straight milk in a scene. So I'm not saying that it's a hard and fast rule, but it sounds about right.
It's
to
not
me.
a blanket rule. Okay.
No, but no, what I'm saying is like the Luke Skywalker we've seen recently is not the Luke Skywalker.
So milk was
Yeah.
was apropos in this case.
It
Okay,
was.
okay, cool.
The old Gran Torino, as Kevin Smith puts it, the Gran Torino get off my lawn, Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. So, and then one thing I want to shout out is Ryan finally buckled and gave me Tears of the Kingdom early.
Oh, yeah, I thought we would talk about this a little bit because I bought Tears of the Kingdom. Ashley's husband, Brad, accidentally got 2 copies somehow. And I was like, oh, I wasn't going to get it right away, but I might as well take it off your hands. I have not played it yet, but that's what I intend to do when I leave this podcast today.
Right. So we were talking about the human centipede. And so there's been this thing all over TikTok of people abusing the Koroks.
Yeah.
And somebody made a Korok centipede. And it was... They are, wow.
The Koroks are just little cuties.
Okay,
like,
but when you find 900 of them and you hear in your sleep, "Yahaha, you found me," those little bastards, they would deserve
Can
it.
they still talk if their mouths are sewn to other?
The first one can.
I think I tapped out at like 130 Koroks. Like,
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not even close. Probably around there is what I found.
I've seen there have been a lot of amusing things with people doing stuff in Tears of the Kingdom, and one of them is like people have been making robot statues with giant twirling flaming dicks too.
Yeah. Well, and then also with the amount of creativity in abusing these Koroks, I was sending my dad videos from TikTok, and he was like, "I'm about to create the Korok Defense Council." And I was like, they don't deserve it. And people are crucifying Koroks.
No.
It's hilarious. They're launching them into space.
That's
They're
cool.
catapulting them. Just like, it's one of those things where, like, I was talking to Ryan recently about, like, you know, in a video game, you know, how mean are you to the other characters, right? You know, and there are people out there. I'm one of those people that's like, I don't like choosing the mean dialogue with an NPC. And so I was like, you know, these people are abusing these Koroks because there's no consequences. And Ryan is very much like, those are the people you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
It's always the silent ones.
Yeah, people who abuse waitstaff or service employees and destroy NPCs in games. Well, I remember, like, a couple of years before Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, I had the Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace video game for
Very nice.
PlayStation 1 that I got at a Blockbuster for $5.
Nice. That's an old sentence.
Well, they have there is one, like, it was a pretty buggy,
1997 for that.
there was a sequence where you're in Mos Bespin, and it is a little bit open world. Like, you just have to collect a certain amount of currency to fix your ship and then go. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. And there's this one sort of like sad alien person whose son has been kidnapped by a warlord. And he says if you get him back, he's going to give you one of the 5 pieces you need. And you can actually just take out your lightsaber and kill him and take this thing without rescuing his son. But if you do that, he's just like, you're no Jedi. And for some reason, that was so disappointing. Like, I was like, oh, he's not mad at me. He's just disappointed in me.
That's funny.
The extent of my video games right now, Mike bought the Harry Potter Legacy game for me to play because I don't play video games, and
I've heard it's very good.
Can I tell you?
It's fun. I just my favorite part is the character I named. God, I hope this doesn't sound insensitive, but he was like a very debonair, dashing like black boy, and he had like almost like a Frederick Douglass haircut.
Okay,
so we
That's a
named
good
his
haircut.
character Freddie D. Doug.
I love that.
And that's my favorite part is like, oh, look, it's our new student, Freddie D. Doug, because it's just not the name that you would typically hear.
I mean, if
in
Booker
the
T can be a
Hufflepuff
famous
house.
wrestler in the Hall of Fame, I think Freddie D. Doug can
Freddie
exist.
D.
Yeah.
Doug, but he's fucking shit up. Like I'm
Blowing
good
up
on
goblins?
spells. No, we don't blow up goblins, but we
Lauren blows
definitely
up
like
goblins a lot in that game.
definitely lifted some shit with Wingardium Leviosa. I got some wand movements down, but like he's doing a really good job. So that's my contribution. Is I have a character named Freddie D. Doug.
Shannon wants to talk about Hogwarts Legacy.
I just want to tell you that I haven't even gotten to play it because my future in-laws, pre-ordered it for me for Christmas because it was supposed to come out on Switch like in the first week of January.
Yeah, I'm waiting for
and
the
then
Switch
it got
too.
pushed out to July, and I just heard from my future mother-in-law. She was like, hey, so we just got another update that it's not coming until November.
Oh my God! But we have it on Xbox.
Yeah, Xbox. So here's the thing with Switch, and this is why Tears of the Kingdom is also like really impressive, is you wouldn't really think it to look at, but the Switch technology is like,
good.
it's so old at this point. Like it's like not just behind for the current generation of systems. It was already a little bit behind for the previous generation, but Nintendo just makes such solid equipment and hardware that it can like play most of these games okay. But occasionally you run into a bug like Hogwarts Legacy where it's just taking them forever to down-res it to be able to play on Switch.
Interesting.
It's also why Nintendo was not named in the Activision lawsuit because they argued that Nintendo wasn't even trying to compete with Xbox and PS5.
I think I probably could bust out a Game Boy that like Jill and my sister and I had from like 1993 or 1994.
That was a great system.
Put batteries in it and it would pop right up. You know, we had the Pokemon game.
That's awesome.
That was a fun one to play.
And Nintendo has done a lot of, they kind of just do their own thing.
I love my Switch, though.
I had a Wii, which that was like the predecessor to the Switch.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no one's doing this except for dumb Allie playing Wii bowling and Wii frisbee golf and Wii wakeboarding.
I remember the In-Betweeners shat on the Wii in one episode, too. It's like, can I bring over my PS4 because I can't play those shitty Wii games anymore.
That was fun. I liked the Wii, though. We had a good time playing that. That was like 2008 through 2011 era.
The Switch was a big buy for me because I actually haven't, I used to play video games all the time, and I've sort of gravitated away from them at this point. But I really wanted to do something nice for myself 2 years ago, and I really wanted to play Breath of the Wild finally. So I was like, I'll get a Switch. And it was one of the best purchase decisions I ever made.
Yeah, I conned myself into a Switch. Not conned, but my dad around the time, right before the pandemic, he was dating this woman, and they were in a polyamorous relationship. Mm-hmm. So he was dating this woman, but really it was this woman was involved, her husband, and his husband. Or, sorry, it was my dad.
His husband, yeah.
Yeah, it was my dad, this woman, her husband's girlfriend, and then they had 2 kids. And so my dad was, every Christmas was getting all of them, Christmas presents. And then he dumped her. And I was like, I did the math, Dad. And there are 5 less people that you need to buy Christmas presents for this year. So you should reallocate those resources to your firstborn child. And I got a Switch that Christmas.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
it makes
beautiful.
Sense.
Beautiful
Greedy
message.
but sensible. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, make this breakup work for us, okay?
Make it
and by
pop-
us,
make
I
it-
mean me.
Profitable for me, please.
Exactly.
So yeah, Ali, we're approaching the end of our self-prescribed arbitrary runtime. Is there anything you're doing these days that you want to talk about before we go, or any like shows, like a Cosmic Trash show coming up or anything?
I just want to give a shout out to the HIT, definitely the Harrisburg Improv Theater, because that's where. I mean, Hal and I we've known each other for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
if we go
weird?
back, it's really weird. I mean, it's not weird. It's such a coincidence that Harrisburg is just such a small place. But no, the Improv Theater it's so much fun. And then Cosmic Trash is a new show that I was asked to be a part of along with Vanessa and Lisa and Ashley. And they're all such fabulous improvisers.
It's such a good team of people.
We actually had I don't want to be like we had our best show, but we had our best show, I think, because we changed our form up a little bit.
So no tarot readings
We
anymore?
did a tarot reading, but we had an interviewee. It was someone had rented the apartment above the HIT for like a birthday celebration. And he didn't know this, but his girlfriend signed him up to be interviewed by us on stage. So rather than get a garbage problem and like try and solve it with our tarot cards that way, we asked him about his life and pulled cards and did a reading, kind of making it more personal for him. And then the improv was, made up from his life. But part of it was also video games because we're like, so what were you doing before this? He's like, I didn't know this was happening. We're upstairs playing video games for the last 20 minutes and blah, blah, blah. So like we worked that into the show. And then there was things about his cat, Mohammed, which I thought was
Mohammed
the cat. But it was a great opportunity, and we were just really happy that we had been asked to do it. So that was a really great show. And then I think we did a HIT Stravaganza in April, and that was fun. But it's just been, it's nice. It's smooth, relaxing a little bit. This weekend, I want to go over to Greek Fest if I can after today for a little bit, and then I'm taking my mom shopping tomorrow for belated Mother's Day get together.
That sounds awesome.
So it's just this is regular adulthood.
Yay.
Yeah, it's just convincing myself not to eat a grilled cheese every night for dinner.
It's like being a kid, but you can have Cheez-Its anytime you want it.
That's not off the table.
It's not. But I think the mark of being a mature adult is like knowing you could make yourself grilled cheese every night for dinner and just being a little bit smarter about it. But
I don't know if I like that way of living.
I eat a lot of grilled cheese, so
I can tell.
I love grilled cheese sandwiches. They're just
grilled cheese.
so. But I mean,
note to self: if anybody sees Allie, give her a grilled cheese sandwich.
I feel like we've talked
That's
about
for
this
life.
before. Like, and I had I think this was like a huge Facebook post I had the one time because like I had a friend who cut a grilled cheese sandwich in half the wrong way. I'm like, it goes diagonally. Like, what's wrong with you, you monster? And anyway,
I remember you saying something like that.
I'm very passionate about the way sandwiches get cut.
It's much more aesthetic to cut them into triangles, I think.
Well, certain sandwiches merit different cuts, or different bread sizes. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about sandwiches.
I smell us having you back on the podcast at one point. How Allie and Shannon talk about sandwiches and puppet cum.
And puppet cum. They're not mutually exclusive.
Those are two topics that shouldn't go together.
I thought we were going to talk about the 8-hour workday and how much I hate it.
Oh, man, that was originally what we were supposed to talk about an hour and a half ago.
We'll save it for the next time. But I have so much to say on that.
I have a lot to say on that, too. I didn't know that was on the table as a topic.
I totally forgot that because I texted Allie last night. I'm like, oh, yeah, if you have any topics, that's usually what we do. Or sometimes we just, sprawl for an hour and a half like we did talking about puppet cum this time. Yep. We're actually trying to break the world record for most times the word puppet cum or phrase has been used in a podcast.
I think we got it.
I
think we got
it.
Well, this
Guinness,
also came out with some
us.
really good movie recommendations. Things to try and see or give a second chance or look from a different perspective, which I think is always good.
I keep saying I'm gonna come up with a Hal and Shannon watch, listen, playlist, and I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, you should.
Well, next month when I don't have to do stuff as much anymore, I'll have more time to curate those things too.
Yeah.
But real quick before we log off, Shannon, you have a comedy show coming up too, don't you?
Tonight. Yeah. So by the time you're listening to this, if you didn't go, then you suck.
I guess I suck.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, it's at the Castle Ring Wine Shop in Carlisle. Gary Limoges is having me on with a couple other great comedians. So that'll be good. Ryan and I are doing, we're in rehearsals right now for The Addams Family. That's going to be July.
Awesome.
Yeah. July.
Where is that?
It's in Duncannon, the Cove Mountain Community Theater, which I didn't know that Duncannon had a community theater.
I didn't know that either.
But I found them this past January because we just did a murder mystery dinner theater with them. So now we're doing The Addams Family, and that'll be July 21st through the 23rd.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also fall prey to the I have a show tonight that nobody will hear about until Monday, but my improv team, Sunday School, is performing tonight at the Hit.
Oh, wonderful.
Which I don't do as much improv as I used to anymore just because life is too much at
Life
this point.
is hard.
But
It's tough to get out there when you don't have shows also.
Yeah.
I did this. I actually I know we're way over at this point,
Who
but
cares?
I did do that last Friday
There are
because
no rules.
Karen was a guest on Holding Hands with John and Tyler, same show that you were on.
Yep.
And I went out there because I didn't get to see her last Thursday because I had to work late. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just come out and I'll watch a night of shows and I'll see you on their show. And it was kind of fun to it had been years since I just sat at the Hit on a night where I didn't have shows. So that was fun.
Nice.
I had a blast during Hitstravaganza watching all the groups that I never get a chance to see.
I had to work. Hitstravaganza was a bad day for me because I had to work and I had to take time off of work / we asked a solo sleepover to swap with us too so that I could actually do one of the shows.
Honestly, thank you, because that was one of our best solo shows. Woo, so we owe it to Hal.
Yay.
Kudos. But it was a
Send
bummer that you...
self-addressed stamped envelope with money in it to Hal.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's a SACE, but anyway, thanks for all sticking with us the last hour and a half here in Allie talk about things. We'll have to have you back on again soon.
Yeah, I would love to.
Because you're a good talker.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciated being on here with you guys, and I'm a big fan of Depression Vacation Podcast.
We have a
So
fan.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely to know that everyone is suppressed, and it's great to celebrate it in a short vacation. And then, as with all things, vacation comes to an end.
Yes.
But then it's always good to go on it again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening, and I've been Hal.
I've been Shannon.
I'm Allie. Thank you.
And have a great week, and we'll see you next week.